In 2247, the alien Voxari demanded humans surrender Earth or risk total annihilation. Declining their twisted proposal meant certain doom for the human species, but caving to their demands would spell the end of human freedom and identity forever. There could be no compromise. Dr. Marcus Caldwell, retired UEG historian, cleared his throat into the vidcorder. At 87, his leathery skin creased as he spoke the painful words. When the Voxari first landed on humanity's Earth orbital station with their so-called scientific exchange proposal, I knew our fate hung on a razor's edge. Prime Minister Walter Miller stood ramrod straight in his pressed uniform, hands clasped behind his back as he confronted the disgusting insectoid aliens. The five-limbed Voxari ambassador towered over Miller, nictitating membranes flashing across compound eyes. It gurgled its demands through an electronic translator, grafted to its carapace. Human Miller, we offer the cure to your many diseases and ailments, your cancers, your Alzheimer's erased, immortality granted, and in return, we only request the right to peacefully establish xenoscience research facilities across your planet's surface, Ambassador Craxon said, sticky mucus flecked from its twitching mandibles. Miller's jaw clenched. He'd crushed alien uprisings across the Orion Spur in his Marine days, and he knew a trap when he saw one. He just needed to buy time to figure out the Voxari's true motives and how to stop them. The very future of the human race depended on him, uncovering and thwarting this vile xenoplot. Dr. Caldwell paused the recording, a faraway look in his milky eyes as the nightmarish memories surged back. That was the beginning of the darkest chapter in human history. If Prime Minister Miller had failed in his duty, we would not be speaking as free humans today. We faced slavery and extinction at the hands of the Voxari, but we did not go quietly. Dr. Caldwell leaned back in his chair, the vidcorder's light blinking. Prime Minister Miller was no fool. He sensed the Voxari were holding something back. Their cure-all immortality drug sounded too good to be true, and Miller didn't rise to lead humanity by ignoring his gut. Jack Warner, a lanky man with a shock of red hair, burst into Miller's office. The 35-year-old former intelligence agent clutched a data pad in a white-knuckled grip. Prime Minister, sir, I found something. The Voxari, they've been spying on us, intercepting our transmissions, probing our planetary defenses. They know everything. Miller's blood ran cold. He clenched his fists, the skin stretching tight over the knuckles. Those lying insectoid bastards. I want a meeting with Craxon, now. The door to the conference room slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Craxon's bulbous head swiveled to face Miller as he stormed inside. The Prime Minister slapped Warner's datapad onto the table. Explain this, Miller spat. Your people have been surveilling us, violating our sovereignty. Did you really think you'd get away with it? Craxon's compound eyes glittered. The behemoth rose from his chair, towering over Miller. Craxon's exoskeleton creaked as he extended to his full 7-foot height. We have done nothing wrong, Craxon said, his translator buzzing. The Voxari merely seek to understand your species before... Before what? Before you steal our resources, our technology? Miller advanced on the alien, jabbing a finger against Craxon's thorax. Tell me why you're really here. Craxon's head dipped, his mandibles twitching. We have observed your planet for many cycles. The Voxari ascendancy requires your participation. Humanity must join us. Surrender your individuality, your will. Embrace the purity of the hive mind. Miller recoiled as if punched. You want to assimilate us? Turn humanity into a race of mindless drones? I think our business is concluded, Ambassador. You have 1 hour to get off my planet before I have my defense forces blast you out of the sky. Craxon's carapace shimmered, a droning noise building in the creature's throat. We will not be denied. If humanity will not submit, you will be destroyed. The Voxari will prevail. The insectoid lumbered from the room, a squad of Marines training their weapons on its back. Miller sagged against the table, head bowed. He tapped his comm bead. Dr. Caldwell paused the recording, his voice heavy with the weight of ancient sorrow. In that moment, Prime Minister Miller knew peace was no longer possible. Humanity faced its greatest threat, a war for our very existence, as a species, as individuals. The Voxari would stop at nothing to strip us of our free will, to consume us. And so, we prepared to fight, to resist the coming storm no matter the odds, for if we lost, we would be forever enslaved, our bodies and minds no longer our own. This was the choice, stand or fall. Dr. Caldwell took a deep breath, his wrinkled hands folded in his lap. Prime Minister Miller knew that time was running out. The Voxari threat loomed larger with each passing moment. He couldn't let those insectoid bastards gain even an inch of ground on Earth. Miller summoned Captain Michael Hammer Hawkins to his office. The 30-year-old Navy SEAL had a reputation for getting results, no matter the odds. Hawkins stood at attention, his jaw set, ready for action. "Captain, I need your team to infiltrate that Voxari ship. Find out what they're planning, what tech they're packing. We're flying blind here," Miller said, his voice low and urgent. The SEAL assembled his team. Sergeant John Reaper Rodriguez, a sniper with nerves of steel, Corporal David Ghost Lee, a master of infiltration, and Private Alex Scorch Novak, a demolitions expert with a knack for making things go boom. The team geared up with state-of-the-art stealth tech, personal cloaking devices that bent light around them, rendering them near invisible. They armed themselves with directed energy weapons, sleek rifles that fired searing beams of concentrated light. Under cover of darkness, Hawkins and his men slipped aboard the Voxari ship, a grotesque organic vessel that looked like a cross between a giant insect hive and a cancerous tumor. The air inside was thick and fetid, the walls pulsing with sickly bioluminescence. As they crept deeper into the bowels of the ship, the team made a horrifying discovery. The Voxari had been experimenting on humans for years, using abducted men and women as raw material to create a new breed of genetically engineered super-soldier. Mindless drones slaved to the alien hive mind. "Mother of God," Hawkins whispered, staring at the rows of stasis pods containing the twisted, half-human abominations. "This isn't just an invasion. It's a fucking assimilation plot." But the true scope of the Voxari plan became clear when Ghost hacked into the ship's computer core. The bugs had already established a secret base on the moon, where they were mass-producing an army of these hive soldiers in preparation for a full-scale attack on Earth. Alarms blared as the team's intrusion was detected. Insectoid warriors swarmed from every direction, their chitinous exoskeletons deflecting the humans' energy beams. Hawkins and his men fought like demons, cutting down the aliens with controlled bursts of fire. They raced back to their insertion point, dodging gouts of acid and clouds of noxious gas. But before they could make their escape, Scorch slapped a pack of C-12 explosive charges on the ship's primary power core. The team barely made it to their waiting stealth shuttle before the charges detonated, vaporizing the Voxari vessel in a blinding flash of light. As they rocketed away from the expanding fireball, Hawkins keyed his comm. "Mission accomplished, sir, but we've got a problem. A big one," he said, his voice grim. "The Voxari are coming, and they're bringing an army of freaks with them." Dr. Caldwell paused the recording, his ancient eyes haunted by the memory. Captain Hawkins and his team had bought us precious time, but only time. The true battle for the fate of humanity was still to come. Dr. Caldwell took a deep breath, his voice heavy as he continued the grim tale. The destruction of the Voxari ship sent shockwaves through the alien delegation. Ambassador Craxon, his compound eyes flashing with rage, burst into Prime Minister Miller's office aboard the Earth orbital station, demanding answers. Miller stood his ground, his face a mask of calm determination as he faced down the towering insectoid. "We know everything, Craxon. Your sick experiments on our people, your secret base on the moon. It ends now." Craxon's mandibles twitched, a guttural clicking emanating from his throat. "You dare accuse the Voxari of such treachery, we who offer you the gift of immortality." "Gift?" Miller spat, slamming his fist on the desk. You mean the gift of enslaving the human race, of turning us into your mindless drones? The Prime Minister threw down a datapad, the screen flickering to life with images of the twisted, half-human abominations found aboard the Voxari ship. Craxon recoiled, his carapace shimmering with barely contained fury. "Your people have 24 hours to leave the solar system," Miller said, his voice low and dangerous. "Refuse, and we will use every weapon at our disposal to eradicate you." Craxon reared to his full height, his clawed appendages flexing. "Foolish human, you have no idea what you've unleashed. The invasion has already begun. Even now, our hive soldiers march on your cities. Your world will fall, and your people will serve the ascendancy." As if summoned by Craxon's words, alarms blared throughout the station, red lights pulsing in the corridors. Miller's comm bead crackled with frantic reports of Voxari shock troops breaching the EOS's defenses. "We need to evacuate now," Miller barked into the comm, signaling his security detail. He turned to Craxon, his eyes narrowing. "This isn't over." But the Voxari ambassador was already moving, his chitinous bulk hurtling towards Miller with terrifying speed. The two leaders clashed in a brutal melee, Miller's augmented strength pitted against Craxon's razor-sharp claws. Around them, the station descended into chaos as human security forces engaged the Voxari hive soldiers in a desperate battle for survival. Energy beams sizzled through the air, searing flesh and scorching metal. Screams of pain and fury echoed through the corridors. Miller grappled with Craxon, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. With a roar of effort, he slammed the insectoid against the bulkhead, driving his fist into the alien's thorax again and again until Craxon's exoskeleton cracked and shattered. The Prime Minister staggered back, his chest heaving as he watched Craxon's lifeless body slump to the floor. But there was no time to savor the victory. The station was lost, overrun by the Voxari invaders. Miller stumbled to the nearest evacuation pod, his security detail close behind. As the pod blasted away from the EOS, the Prime Minister keyed in the station's self-destruct sequence, a final, desperate gambit to deny the aliens access to humanity's most advanced technology. Dr. Caldwell paused, his eyes distant as he recalled the sight of the Earth orbital station erupting in a blinding flash of light, the fiery debris cascading through the void. But even as the EOS burned, we knew the true battle was just beginning. On Earth, panic gripped the population as news of the Voxari invasion spread like wildfire. The United Earth government mobilized every soldier, every ship, every weapon at its disposal. Humanity stood on the brink of its darkest hour, facing an enemy that sought nothing less than our total subjugation. Dr. Caldwell's voice grew heavy as he recounted the chaos that followed the destruction of the Earth orbital station. With Prime Minister Miller gravely wounded and our leadership in disarray, it fell to General Thomas Ironside Reynolds to rally humanity's defenses against the Voxari onslaught. Reynolds, a grizzled 55-year-old veteran of countless battles, wasted no time in assuming command. He stood before a hastily assembled group of UEG military leaders, his steely gaze sweeping over the room. "We're at war, people. The Voxari won't stop until every last one of us is dead or enslaved. We need to hit them hard and fast." Colonel Mark Maverick Davis, Reynolds' trusted second-in-command, stepped forward. The 40-year-old had a reputation as a brilliant strategist and a fearless fighter. "We've got reports of Voxari forces landing in major cities worldwide. New York, London, Tokyo, Sydney. They're everywhere." Reynolds nodded grimly. "Then that's where we'll make our stand, mobilize every soldier, every tank, every fighter jet we've got, and get the word out to the civilian militias. We need every able-bodied man and woman on the front lines." As the Voxari hive soldiers swarmed through the streets, human defenders met them head-on in a desperate struggle for survival. In the ruins of downtown Los Angeles, a platoon of Marines took cover behind the shattered remnants of skyscrapers, energy weapons blazing as they cut down wave after wave of insectoid horrors. Across the globe, ordinary citizens took up arms to defend their homes and loved ones. In the narrow alleyways of Paris, a group of shopkeepers and factory workers wielded makeshift weapons, pipes, crowbars, Molotov cocktails, against the relentless Voxari advance. Dr. Caldwell's voice trembled with emotion as he spoke of the heroism and sacrifice displayed by humanity in its darkest hour. They fought with everything they had, knowing that surrender meant a fate worse than death. They were fighting for the very soul of our species. But even as the battle raged above, hope stirred in the depths of a top-secret research facility buried beneath the Rocky Mountains. There, Dr. Richard "Doc" Summers, a brilliant scientist with a keen mind honed by decades of experience, pored over the alien technology recovered from the EOS. Summers knew that the key to victory lay in understanding the Voxari hive mind, the complex network of telepathic communication that allowed the aliens to coordinate their attacks with terrifying precision. If he could find a way to disrupt that connection, to sever the Voxari soldiers from their queen. The 60-year-old genius worked tirelessly, his team of hand-picked experts pushing themselves to the brink of exhaustion as they raced to unravel the secrets of the Voxari technology. They had already made progress in reverse engineering the aliens' advanced weaponry, but Summers knew that guns alone would not win this war. As the sounds of battle echoed through the reinforced walls of the facility, Summers stared at the lines of code scrolling across his computer screen, his mind whirring with possibilities. Somewhere in this alien data, he knew, lay the key to humanity's salvation, a way to strike back against the Voxari and turn the tide of the war. Dr. Caldwell paused, his voice heavy with the weight of memory. While our soldiers fought and died on the surface, Dr. Summers and his team labored in the depths, working to uncover the Voxari's greatest weakness. They knew that time was running out, that every moment brought humanity closer to the brink of extinction. Dr. Caldwell paused, his voice growing heavy with sorrow, as he recounted the next chapter in humanity's desperate struggle against the Voxari invaders. As the battle raged on Earth, our leaders knew we needed a decisive victory, a way to strike at the heart of the enemy's power, and so they turned to Captain Hawkins and his team once more. The vidcorder's light pulsed as Dr. Caldwell continued, his eyes distant with memory. Using a captured Voxari shuttle, Hawkins and his men slipped past the alien defenses and landed on the moon's surface, determined to infiltrate the secret base hidden there. As the team crept through the airlock, weapons at the ready, they found themselves in a labyrinthine network of tunnels and chambers that stretched deep beneath the lunar regolith. Eerie, pulsing lights flickered along the walls, casting sinister shadows across the chitinous surfaces. What they discovered there chilled them to the bone, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice barely above a whisper. Thousands upon thousands of dormant hive soldiers waiting to be activated and sent to Earth. A sleeping army that could crush humanity's resistance in a matter of days. Hawkins signaled his team forward, their footsteps echoing in the unnatural stillness. As they delved deeper into the heart of the base, they stumbled upon a central control room, where a group of Voxari overseers directed the invasion with ruthless precision. All hell broke loose, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice trembling with the memory of the desperate battle that followed. Hawkins and his men fought like demons, energy beams scorching the air as they clashed with the Voxari warriors. In the end, the humans emerged victorious, the overseers lying dead at their feet. But as Hawkins rushed to the control panel, his heart sank. The overseers had triggered a self-destruct sequence, a final act of spite that would vaporize the base and everyone in it. Hawkins knew what he had to do, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice heavy with grief. He ordered his team to evacuate, to get back to the shuttle and escape while they still could. But he stayed behind, his fingers flying over the alien controls as he sought to override the self-destruct. The team protested, begging their leader to come with them, but Hawkins was adamant. "Go," he said, his voice steady even as the countdown ticked away. "Get back to Earth. Warn them what's coming. I'll buy you as much time as I can." With heavy hearts the team obeyed, racing through the tunnels as the base shuddered and groaned around them. They barely made it to the shuttle before the explosions began, the lunar surface buckling and heaving as the Voxari stronghold tore itself apart. As they watched the base explode, they knew that Captain Hawkins had given his life to strike a blow against the Voxari, to buy humanity precious time in its darkest hour, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice raw with emotion. His sacrifice would not be forgotten. Dr. Caldwell leaned back in his chair, his voice heavy with the weight of memory as he continued the tale. Even as Captain Hawkins made his final sacrifice on the moon, Dr. Summers and his team toiled ceaselessly in their hidden lab, desperate to find a way to turn the tide of the war. But the elation was short-lived. To implement their plan, they needed to find the Queen herself, hidden somewhere on the war-torn Earth. And so General Reynolds devised a daring gambit, a series of coordinated strikes against Voxari strongholds across the globe, designed to draw out the Queen and force her to reveal herself. It was a plan born of desperation, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice grim, but it was all we had left. Across the planet, the remnants of Earth's armies mobilized for one final push. Soldiers from every nation, every walk of life, united in a common cause, the survival of their species. They marched into battle, their weapons primed, their hearts steeled against the horrors they knew awaited them. The Voxari met them with a fury unlike anything they had seen before. New weapons, new tactics, all designed to crush the human resistance once and for all. In the ruins of New York City, the fighting reached a fever pitch, as Colonel Davis led a desperate charge against a heavily fortified Voxari fortress. They hit them with everything they had, Dr. Caldwell whispered, his eyes distant. Energy beams, acid sprays, swarms of hive drones, but Davis and his men pushed forward, inch by bloody inch. Until, at last, they breached the fortress walls. But the price was high. Davis himself fell, his body riddled with sizzling holes, his life given in service to his people. But his sacrifice was not in vain, for in the heart of the fortress they found it, the hidden chamber where the Voxari Queen lurked, her grotesque form pulsing with malevolent power. The soldiers charged, their weapons blazing, but the Queen was ready for them. With a scream that echoed in their minds, she unleashed a psychic blast that brought them to their knees, their thoughts and memories stripped away until only blind obedience remained. The device thrummed with power, its lights pulsing in time with the Queen's heartbeat. Summers aimed it at the towering monstrosity, his finger tightening on the trigger. The Queen sensed the danger, reared back to strike, but she was too late. A blinding flash of light, a deafening roar, and then silence. The Queen convulsed, her psychic scream fading to a whimper as the disruptor tore through the fabric of the hive mind. Across the battlefield, across the world, Voxari soldiers collapsed like marionettes with severed strings, their minds suddenly, terrifyingly alone. The tide had turned, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice ringing with a fierce pride. Humanity had struck back against the darkness, and though the war was far from over, we had shown the Voxari that we would not go quietly into the night. Dr. Caldwell continued the story, his voice heavy with the weight of the past. With the Voxari Queen's defeat, we thought the war was finally turning in our favor. But we were wrong. The Voxari were far from beaten, and they soon regrouped under the command of a new leader, a ruthless warlord known as Xerox. The vidcorder's light pulsed as Dr. Caldwell spoke, his eyes distant with memory. Xerox was determined to succeed where the Queen had failed. He unleashed a devastating new weapon upon the Earth, a swarm of nanobots capable of infiltrating and taking control of any technology they encountered. The nanobots spread like a plague, infecting everything in their path. Smartphones turned against their owners, military satellites fell from the sky, and the very infrastructure of civilization began to crumble. Chaos and destruction reigned as the nanobots wreaked havoc on a global scale. In the midst of this new crisis, an unlikely hero emerged, Dr. Caldwell said, a hint of pride in his voice. A young hacker named Liam Zero O'Connor, who possessed a unique ability to communicate with and control the nanobots. Liam, a scrawny 19-year-old with a mop of unruly black hair and piercing blue eyes, had been secretly working with Dr. Summers to develop a countermeasure to the nanobot swarm. As the situation on Earth grew more desperate by the day, Liam realized that he might be humanity's last hope for survival. With the help of a small team of elite soldiers, Liam embarked on a dangerous mission to infiltrate Xerox's command ship and upload a virus that would destroy the nanobots from within, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice tense with the memory of the desperate gamble. The team, led by Sergeant Jack "Ripper" Hansen, a grizzled veteran with a scar running down the left side of his face, fought their way through hordes of Voxari soldiers and nanobot-controlled drones. The corridors of the alien ship echoed with the sound of gunfire and the screams of the dying as the team pushed forward inch by bloody inch. Finally, they reached the ship's central core, a vast chamber pulsing with malevolent energy. Liam rushed to the control panel, his fingers flying over the alien interface as he prepared to upload the virus. But before he could complete the upload, a towering figure emerged from the shadows. Xerox, a monstrous amalgamation of flesh and machine, stood before them, his eyes glowing with hatred. "Did you really think it would be that easy, human?" Xerox sneered, his voice a grating metallic rasp. Sergeant Hansen stepped forward, his weapon raised. "Liam, finish the upload. I'll hold him off." What followed was a brutal battle, Hansen's skills pitted against Xerox's raw power. The sergeant fought with everything he had, buying Liam precious seconds as the virus began to take hold. In a final, desperate act, Hansen charged forward, driving his combat knife deep into Xerox's chest. The warlord roared in pain and rage, his claw-like hands closing around Hansen's throat. But it was too late. The virus was uploading, spreading through the nanobot swarm like wildfire. The nanobots began to self-destruct, exploding in cascades of sparks and smoke. The team barely managed to escape the ship before it exploded, the shockwave throwing them clear as Xerox and the remnants of the Voxari forces were consumed in a blinding flash of light. Dr. Caldwell paused, his eyes haunted by the memory of that fateful day. Sergeant Hansen's sacrifice bought us our victory, but at a terrible cost. He was a true hero, one of many who gave their lives so that humanity might live. Dr. Caldwell leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant as he recounted the bittersweet aftermath of humanity's victory over the Voxari. In the wake of the Voxari's defeat, we thought the worst was behind us. We were wrong. The elderly historian's voice grew heavy with sorrow as he described the long and painful process of rebuilding a shattered Earth. Cities lay in ruins, millions had perished, and the scars of the war ran deep. But as humanity struggled to pick up the pieces, a new threat emerged from within. "Victor Caney," Dr. Caldwell spat, his face contorting with disgust. "A snake in the grass, a traitor to his own kind." Caney, a charismatic politician with a silver tongue, had risen to prominence in the chaos of the post-war world. But behind his carefully crafted facade of concern and compassion, he harbored a dark secret. He was a Voxari collaborator, working to undermine the UEG and pave the way for a second invasion. Caney and his followers had infiltrated every level of government, every branch of the military, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice trembling with anger. They whispered poison into the ears of the people, sowing doubt and discord. As civil unrest spread like wildfire, Prime Minister Miller, still bearing the wounds of his battle with Craxon, knew that Caney had to be stopped. He turned to the one person he could trust, Captain Sarah Spectre Gray, a battle-hardened veteran of the Voxari War. Gray assembled a team of elite operatives, each handpicked for their skills and loyalty. There was Liam Zero O'Connor, the young hacker who had played a crucial role in defeating the nanobot swarm, and Zax, a reformed Voxari soldier who had defected to the human side. Together they embarked on a covert mission to infiltrate Caney's inner circle and expose his treachery. They posed as loyal followers, attending secret meetings and gathering evidence of Caney's true agenda. But as they delved deeper into the conspiracy, they uncovered a truth more shocking than they could have imagined. Caney was not just a collaborator, but a Voxari himself, a genetically engineered sleeper agent who had been hiding in plain sight for years. The revelation sent shockwaves through the UEG, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice heavy with the weight of memory. Caney's true nature exposed, he fled to his stronghold in the heart of the capital, surrounded by his most fanatical followers. Gray and her team gave chase, battling through the streets as Caney's loyalists fought to protect their leader. They finally cornered him in a fortified bunker beneath the city, where he revealed his final desperate gambit. Caney had rigged the entire complex with explosives, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice barely above a whisper, enough to level the city and kill millions. In a tense standoff, Gray and her team fought to disarm the bombs, while Caney and his followers threw themselves at them in a frenzy of fanatical rage. In the end, Gray was forced to make the ultimate sacrifice. She ordered her team to evacuate, to get as many civilians to safety as they could. Then, with a grim determination, she confronted Caney alone, buying time for the city to be evacuated. What happened in that bunker? Only Captain Gray and Caney himself will ever know, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice heavy with grief. But when the dust settled, the city still stood. Caney was dead, and the conspiracy was shattered. Dr. Caldwell paused, his head bowed in a moment of silent remembrance for the fallen hero. Captain Sarah Gray gave her life to save us all, to preserve the freedom and unity that so many had fought and died for. Her sacrifice will never be forgotten. The historian looked up, his eyes blazing with a fierce resolve. But even as we mourned her loss, we knew that the fight was far from over. The Voxari threat still loomed, and there were those among us who still clung to the misguided belief that submission was our only hope. Dr. Caldwell paused, his eyes haunted by the memory of those dark days. We thought we had won, that the sacrifices of Captain Gray and so many others had bought us a lasting peace. But we were wrong. The historian's voice grew heavy as he recounted the discovery that shattered humanity's fragile sense of security. As the UEG worked to rebuild our shattered world, our scientists made a terrifying discovery. The Voxari were not alone in their designs on Earth. Dr. Caldwell's hands trembled as he spoke of the Zephyri, a race of energy beings with the power to possess and control the minds of other species. They had been watching us from the shadows, manipulating the Voxari like puppets on a string. And now, with the Voxari defeated, they were ready to make their move. The first attacks came without warning, devastating human colonies across the solar system. The Zephyri, their ethereal forms immune to conventional weapons, tore through the colonists' defenses like a scythe through wheat. Prime Minister Miller knew we were facing an existential threat, one that could wipe out humanity once and for all, Dr. Caldwell said, his voice barely above a whisper. And so he made a decision that would change the course of human history forever. Miller authorized the use of a doomsday weapon, a massive EMP device that would wipe out all electronic technology on Earth and effectively send humanity back to the Stone Age. The plan was audacious, desperate, and utterly ruthless. We would lure the Zephyri into a trap, drawing them to Earth with the promise of an easy victory, Dr. Caldwell explained, his eyes distant. And then we would detonate the device, destroying them along with any hope of human advancement. As the Zephyri fleet approached Earth, the device was activated. In an instant, the world went dark. Power grids collapsed, communication networks failed, and the very foundations of modern civilization crumbled to dust. Dr. Caldwell's voice grew heavy with emotion as he described the aftermath of the attack. We had won, but at what cost? Billions dead, our cities in ruins, our technology lost forever. We had saved ourselves from the Zephyri, but in doing so, we had doomed ourselves to a future of struggle and hardship. The historian paused, his eyes haunted by the weight of his memories. And yet, even in the depths of our despair, there were those who refused to give up hope. Those who believed that humanity could rise from the ashes, stronger and wiser than before. Dr. Caldwell's voice grew stronger as he spoke of the survivors, the men and women who had banded together to rebuild what had been lost. They were the ones who kept the flame of human civilization alive, who passed down the stories of our past so that future generations might learn from our mistakes. But even as humanity struggled to rebuild, Dr. Caldwell knew that the scars of the war would never truly heal. We had won, but at a terrible price, and as I look to the future, I cannot help but wonder if we will ever be able to reclaim what we have lost. The historian's voice grew heavy with emotion as he contemplated the uncertain future that lay ahead. Will we rise from the ashes stronger and wiser than before? Or are we doomed to remain forever in the ruins of our once great civilization, haunted by the knowledge of what we have lost? You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.